Alright, as promised, this is gonna be the guide or tutorial on how to play Lee. As usual, we're gonna move through his whole move list and I'm gonna explain when to use what move, what advantages and disadvantages they have, how to counter those or how they get countered and what to watch out for, stuff like that. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, we've got the classic 1-2 as a 1-2 punish. What's special about that, if we tap forward right after, we're gonna do a missed step, from which we get some additional options. Mainly the slide with 3+4 and missed step 3-4, which is a launcher but punishable, -13. You can also do tap back right after to do that little sway back, so to speak. And if you go for 4, in that instance, you're gonna come back with a low, which on counter hit counts as a launch. Against male characters you would actually be able to do a combo with 4-3. Against male characters with female hitboxes or against female characters, you won't get the pickup that way and you need to change up your combo a bit. Otherwise, it won't properly connect. Alright, then we've got 1, 2, 2, 3. So, if the first 2 connects on counter hit, the full string becomes guaranteed. Same applies to the shorter versions, like down forward 1+2, 3 or 2, 2, 3. Though down forward 1+2, 3 is a natural on its own. So the only other string that becomes natural uncounted would be 2, 2, 3. Yeah. It's stackable, however, and highly seeable, so don't use it too often or use it very sparingly. Good opponents will constantly punish it. Should they not punish it by crouching and then while standing punishing, because you're -3, you're still allowed to move around as you wish. 1, 2, 4. So this one you can use as a punish to then go into Hitman stance to kind of bait your opponent into doing something. As you can see, if I don't go into stance, the distance roughly stays the same, but the upper body part is further back than the leg is. So most mids and highs from that distance, if you manage to hit your opponent, will miss, except if they step in, of course, to do some stuff, or use forward moves and the like. On block, it's unsafe, doesn't matter which version, so I would either use the charged up version if you want to stay safe, or only use the shorter ones as a punish if you want to play around with the stance for a bit, cause just 1, 2, 4 on its own isn't too great because you get no real frame advantage and it leaves you at -1. So you would still be able to move around, but you wouldn't be able to continue with pressure as usual. If you, however, punish your opponent and then go into stance, I usually do it with 3+4. You kind of set your opponent up for whiffing an attack. So if they get used to you not pressuring further, at some point you're gonna switch to Hitman stance and then go for the big launch or the mix-up. Also, 1, 2, 4, if you hold 4 down, you get the charged up safe version, which works as a counter hit launch as well. Yeah. Yeah, 1, 2, and 2 misstep, we already talked about that. Also, what's to notice about the misstep is, while he's doing that, you can see in status that it's switching between standing and while crouching. So while he's mid-animation, he can evade highs or completely crush them. Then we've got the Acid Rain. Incredible 10-frame Punisher. The full string is guaranteed and gives you a free follow-up for roughly 44 damage. You could go for blazing kicks instead, but timing-wise it's a bit more difficult. And I don't know why, but for some reason, sometimes if you try to go for the blazing kick and your opponent just tries to stand up normally, you sometimes get a launch. I don't know why that is. I've tried to figure it out on several occasions, but I didn't manage to actually make progress there. One thing you gotta be wary of is that this string is launch punishable as hell. It's -18. So if you want to utilize that, only use it when you know that your opponent is at least -10 or worse. Otherwise, just throwing it out in neutral is the biggest mistake you can make. Don't do that. Then we've got 2-1-1 and 2-1-3 as well as 2-1-4. So to go in order, 2-1-1 is basically your mid-check, so to speak. So if you noticed that your opponent likes to duck a lot of strings, you're going for that. Leaves you at +3 on hit, is -12 I believe on block, yeah. Also, the last hit on counter is a countered launch. Yeah, you can also just do 2-1 as a 10-frame punish if you want. If you just want the frame advantage, so that's a great tool. -5 on block as well, so you could parry any jabs or mid-checks from your opponent if they try to immediately high or mid-check you. Also, after 2-1, you can switch to Hitman stance, and then could immediately mix them from there. 2-1-3 leaves you at -4. You can still move, but it's a bit risky. It kind of depends on what character you're facing off against. Also, if I remember correctly, the last hit on counter is an immediate screw launch, which has its uses. However, I myself don't utilize that string as much. Most people will duck it, not because they expect the high, but because they expect the low of combination fear. Yeah, so you basically got a high, a mid, and a low option. And the only option that checks your opponent and prevents them from ducking is the mid version, right? Combination 3. So I myself mostly use either combination 3 if I notice that I'm fighting a player that likes to utilize while standing moves a lot. So Eddie players, Kazuya, Josie, Bob, nearly all bot players, they always try to duck everything and immediately go for while standing. So this string is basically made for them, right? And 2-1-4 I use against people who love to interrupt me, you know? On counter, huge plus frames. You don't get anything guaranteed. Oh wait, I think you might actually... Oh shit, never mind! Alright, that's stronger than I have kept it in my memory, it seems. So, apparently you get a 10 frame string for free, or 10 frame pressure for free. So you could do 2-1 for the usual frame advantage, 2-1 into stance and then mix, or if you want to go for damage itself, you go for the acid rain combination. Damn, that's strong. The thing with combination fear, however, is it's very, very, very launch punishable. So, yeah, if that gets blocked, you basically die. Then we've got 2-3. We already talked about this one. Starts with a 10 frame move as well. If you notice your opponent is ignoring frame advantage and disadvantage, you check him with a 2-3 basically. Uncountered, the full thing becomes guaranteed. And yeah, there's also like that mini setup after down 4, up 3, where you're only -1. The same goes for 4, up 3, where you're also just -1. Because of the status on how you recover, and you kind of count as airborne, more often than not you're gonna completely evade highs and will get the counted, and so that's like a mini setup you can do. Yeah, then we've got just the mist kick. This on its own is okay. I don't use it that often. You can... I think... yeah. I remember there being a stance transition. Yeah. But the timing is quite strict. You can kinda go for the Mistwolf combination as well. As you can see, it's highly delayable. There we go. So if you immediately go after the first kick with 4, you switch into Hitman stance. So you could basically bait your opponent into trying to retaliate, wait for them to whiff, and then launch them with Hitman 2. The other one is a bit... So this is still easy, right? That's just the delayed second hit to prevent your opponent from trying to interrupt you when they think that you're going for the mistrap throw instead. And this one's very tricky, because that's one of the just frames he has. As acid rain, also a just frame he has, but I feel like this one is trickier. It doesn't matter if your opponent blocks or not. Basically, you cancel the first hit before it even connects. You can see him faint. And the actual hit is the second one, that's the high, right? And if you press 4 at the exact timing, it should connect with your opponent. It's gonna convert into that grab animation, right? You get a guaranteed forward 3 as a follow-up if your opponent tries to stand up or use any get-up kick. Also, because it's a really strange move. It kind of counts as a grab, an unbreakable grab. So if the opponent blocks and it connects on block, it still goes through basically. Very difficult to execute in a real match, but very fun to land once you get the hang of it. Alright, then we've got the different somersault combinations, right? So we've got 4-3-3. As you can see, it's not a natural. If just the 4 connects on its own, it would be a countered launch. But if we do the full thing, you can see we're not in range for the last hit to actually connect. If the second connects on counter hit, you see how he stumbled back there? That means that he's gonna eat the third hit as well. So if we manage to connect the second hit, oops, on counter hit, the third one is always guaranteed, even if you delay it heavily. Because usually, if you use that, you just go for the first two, right? If you see the animation, you do the full thing. Or if you think that your opponent is getting impatient, you can do the last hit as well. Like that's immediately, and that's a bit delayed. Yeah. And if the last hit connects and you are close enough to your opponent, for example, your opponent is close to a wall or stuff like that, you get a guaranteed up back 3. So that's great. The safer option we have is 4-3-4, right? The weakness about that move is your opponent can jab in between and float you for a combo. So while the string is basically safe, if your opponent knows Lee very well or just loves to mash buttons at random points mid-fight, you're gonna get floated a lot, right? The same applies for the shorter versions. Those can be floated as well, so your opponent can jab you out of there as well. So yeah. Against better players, use with caution. Then we've got 4-4-4. We have different options from here, what we can do. We can use it as a keep out tool, right? So if our opponent tries to get in, he's gonna get clipped by one of those hits, and if we're lucky, we might even be able to follow up with a combo, right? If we just do the first two. If we do all 3, right, and the first one already connected, we won't land the third hit and our opponent will be too far away to actually catch up for the combo. If the second connects on counter hit and the third connects as well, we would still be able to pull off the combo. So as long as just 2 hits connect, we're good. But if 3 connects, we won't be able to get the pickup for the combo. So we either use it as a keep out tool to kind of control neutral a bit, or we can use it in close range for a setup. Just 2 is the safer option. The third one is just meant to catch your opponent off guard, basically. And as you can see, we are pushing ourselves a bit away from our opponent. So even though we're at -5, we would still be able to move around, either to the side or backdash, and try to make our opponent whiff and punish him for that, right? Or we could go for a really cheeky launch. Yes, Lee has a safe high, goddammit, a safe launch that's a high. Alright. The pickup on that is a bit difficult though. The special thing about this move, forward, for a fraction of a second basically, he counts as in while crouch. So if you expect your opponent to use any kind of high, you can basically high crush them and then go for the pickup. You pick up with back 3-3 into missed step. You need to do a micro dash towards your opponent to get into that range, however. This one just takes practice. Gotta practice it over and over again, there's no other way. Yeah, this one we talked about a bit, you can get checked out of it, but you've got a countered follow-up, so to speak. Or if you're really cheeky and expect a high, you could either go for down forward 1 or forward 4, because both options can crush highs. If you want to be even cheekier, you could go for a missed step right after, right? Because if you remember, while we do the missed step, we count as while crouching, right? So if we expect a high, we could basically slip under our opponent's attack and immediately launch, right? Or go for a counter hit that gives us a low profile, where we count as in crouching, right? Or forward, stuff like that. The evasive kind of maneuvers we have at our disposal. Then we've got the period punch. So it's a homing move, right? A great one at that as well. It's okayish speed-wise, right? The great thing about this is you can go immediately into Hitman stance to mix your opponent when you hit them, right? And even if you haven't hit them, you still have a power crush to save yourself. If that's too risky for you and you want to play it a bit safer, you can immediately cancel out of Hitman stance. Or, if you want to be a bit riskier, cancel by holding down and go for any while standing move to apply some more pressure. You could also just do the move on its own, see if it connects, it leaves you at -4, right? And then go from there between a while sliding, while standing mix-up. But more to that later down the line. Also, on counter hit, you get the launch for free. Your pickup is with back 3-3 and then you tap forward for the misstep. Even if you cancel into stance, you get the pickup as well. But getting the timing there can be a bit tricky. Yeah, the Hitman stance itself, we can't block in that stance, but we can cancel it by holding back if we want to play it safe, to block incoming attacks, or if we want to be a bit riskier, crouch to cancel out of that and then apply full crouch while standing mix-up. Yeah, the freaker jab is basically to check our opponent after certain moves, right? If they try to interrupt us. For example, if this gets blocked, right, and our opponent isn't sure yet if we go for any kind of full string, right, we use that moment of hesitation to go into Hitman and then jab them with that once, which will give us some plus frames, so they won't be able to interrupt us as easily. And even if it's blocked, even if it gets blocked, we're still at neutral, and if our opponent does something that's not at least 12 frames fast, we would still be able to interrupt our opponent. Or we could cancel and get some distance to whiff punish. Yeah, the jab rush is basically just a tool to get some more distance in between us. As you can see, Let's demonstrate real quick. If I just do one, we're still very close, right? But if I do all of them, it's a bit more of... We've gained a bit more distance, right? If we do... I think it was... If you do 3 or 4, you're very minus, right? The safest would probably to just go for 2, cause you're at -1. Ah, one thing I forgot to mention, while in Hitman stance you can also sidestep. So you could poke away at your opponent with 2 of those, or just 1, step, and then go for the big launch. Yeah. 1-4, that's basically for the kind of opponents that started ducking the rush with the different highs. You can either just do 1-4 and go back into neutral with a frame advantage of +2 to play the neutral game as you usually would, right? Or after the 1-4 you immediately press 3+4. Huh? I can't get it to work, but you can go back into... Well, that's it. You can go back into Hitman stance. And you gain some additional distance as well, so it's quite good. If I remember correctly, the mid... let's see... Yeah, it's a countered launch as well. So if that connects and countered, you get a combo. Hitman 2. So Hitman 2 has some evasive properties. Mainly you use it against highs that your opponent throws out, or if you're in Hitman stance and noticed your opponent with something big and you're in range, you use that to punish them. It's -13 on block, so same rules as a hop kick, so to speak. And if you manage to hit your opponent with that, the damage is quite huge. Yeah. Hitman 3 is your homing, screwing power crush. Let's see. So if your opponent tried to use a hop kick or any move where he himself is airborne and you catch them with a power crush on its own, you're gonna get a screw and can continue the combo. Because it's homing, it's great for catching sidewalking people or sidestepping people as well. And it's a power crush, so every time you go into stance, your opponent basically has to gamble with you if you're going for the power crush option or not, right? There is of course a counter against that, which would just be the dick jab, so to speak, because the move is a high, right? And by dick jabbing, you throw out the fastest option you have, evade the high power crush, deal some damage, right? And even if you missed your timing to properly punish the power crush itself, you manage to get some damage in while trying to intercept any different option your opponent might have gone for if it was not the power crush he wanted to go for, right? So if, for example, oops, let's see, stuff like that, right? Because he takes a step forward, right? The same goes for the other options. Though, as you can see, Hitman 2, because he's taking a swing back, so to speak, it's difficult to hit them. If he was going for another option, however, like 1+2 or stuff like that, right? You will still interrupt. So the safer options your opponent has, you can basically interrupt, while the more riskier options, you yourself get a bit more vulnerable. So you kind of need to read on your opponent if it's someone who plays very safe or very risky, right? Hitman 4. So Hitman 4 is a bit of an Oki trap, a counter hit tool, and basically tool to intimidate your opponent, right? The thing is, the move on block is very punishable. Its launch punish on block, -26, is quite bad, as you can see. However, if it connects on counter hit, it works as a counter hit launch. And if it hits normally, you get a blazing kick guaranteed. So if your opponent gets hit by the low and tries to stand up immediately and the blazing kick connects, you get a combo for free, so to speak. There's no way for your opponent to evade the blazing kick themselves. The only thing they can do is to just stay on the ground and eat the kick while grounded. After they ate it once, then they can get back up safely. But if they didn't and they try to stand up immediately, they are gonna eat a huge chunk of damage. As you can see, after that, I dash forward to crouch cancel, right? And then go for blazing kicks. There is a bit of timing involved as well. As you could see, I didn't get the launch there properly. It's the same like with Acid Rain, right? If you try to go for blazing kicks after Acid Rain, sometimes you get the launch, sometimes it gets blocked, and sometimes you get that weird flip. It's very, very timing specific. Alright, Hitman 1+2. So this is the safest option you have from your Hitman stance. It's safe on block at -7, it's a mid, so it's a great mid check. And even if it gets blocked, if you think your opponent is gonna try to retaliate immediately with any punch, you can go for parry setups. I really like to harass people with that combination. It's really strong in the heat of battle. Then we've got a wall bounce as well. So after wall combo, I'm gonna cover wall combos a bit later, you can mix your opponent with that to get a good chunk of damage in. On block, I think it was new. It's safe at -9. I was confusing it with this move. So it's safe to use at the wall, right? And if you have a hard read against an opponent that's on the ground and wants to get up with the toe kick, right? You could just low crush them and punish them very heavily for it to never try this again against you. Great move. So Silver Circle, this one's a bit tricky. I've only found 2 uses for it, right? One would, or let's say 3. One would be in the neutral game, if you're trying to bait your opponent into attacking, at some point you're throwing it out. It's a counter hit launch as well. Hang on. There we go. So you get some good damage there as well. In another situation, it's great after any kind of knockdown move. If your opponent is someone who chronically goes for get-up kicks, mids or highs, like after running 3-4 for example, right? If you immediately go for that and they try to go for the get-up kick, you will get the counter hit guaranteed. Need to set this like that. Probably need to do it manually myself. Nope. Let's go again. So I'm gonna try to interrupt with a get-up kick after I've been hit now. Well, of course I need to get hit. Oh, goddamn, didn't even have time for the get-up kick. Well, so if you delay it a bit, then you'll get the counter hit. Sometimes that the wall stuff gets weird and the timing kind of changes as well, so you have to look out for that. The move on its own is safe. It forces crouch, though while it forces crouch, you could put yourself at risk against mix-up heavy characters or characters that have a strong offense from full crouch while standing, right? If it connects normally, you get a guaranteed up back 3 or a blazing kick as well. As you see, I just got the weird flip thing again. Sometimes you would get the launch instead. It's a weird leaf thing. Then we've got 4-2-1. So this is your combo finish and your main 14 frame punisher. You can heavily delay the second hit and you can kinda hit confirm it. The thing is, if you delay it too much, it won't be a natural string anymore. There, it got blocked as you can see, right? But if you get it right, you can hit confirm it and stay safe. The second move is a high, so it can be ducked and while standing launched. Gotta watch out for that. Yeah, that's probably all there. Right. Out of the missed step itself, it's something you can use to get some additional wall carry as well, or to mix your opponent after swaying back to make your opponent with. That's an option as well. I forgot to mention that. Alright, then we've got the Acid Storm. So this is a bit tricky, right? If you don't do the high follow-up, you are going to get launch punished. If you do the high follow-up, your opponent might be waiting for the high and while standing launch you nonetheless, right? There is a stance transition to Hitman as well, but it sucks. Never use that. You're gonna get launch punished there as well. As you can see, it's very minus as well. At -7, leaving you in a stance where you can't immediately block and need to cancel the stance first, so it's quite risky. So basically, it's a mind game between yourself and your opponent if you're going to finish the string, or if you're just gonna leave it at those small kicks, right? Hit confirming here is key. So if you noticed that you managed to get a hit in, you obviously do the full thing to get your combo, right? Loop-wise, you get 2 back 2s in and then need to finish with a 4-2-1. If you try to go for 3, you won't be able to get the last hit in properly. I think, if I remember correctly. Let's see if I can get it real quick to demonstrate. Yeah, I'm too fast. I need to wait a bit more. Yeah, as you can see, the last hit, it just whiffs. The first one of a 4-2-1 connects, but the deciding one the one that gives you the huge amount of wall carry that just whiffs, so we keep it at 2. Yeah. It's one of his 15 frame launchers as well, so you've got the hop knee and the acid storm, right? For style points at the wall, you can use that to break people through the wall, right? And if just the high connects, you get a guaranteed blazing kicks. You get a guaranteed launch if they try to stand up or use the get up kick, and if they stay grounded, you still get the grounded kick, right? Sometimes you even get the pickup if you're very close to the wall at a certain angle, but that's very rare. I wanted to mention it nonetheless. Yeah, let's see, was there something else? Deadly Arc. So this is your harassing counter hit tool, so to speak. We've got Deadly Cyclone and Deadly Arc. So the high version is basically to move around yourself, right? Or to use it in a screw. So you could use that in neutral, step to the side and then go for a launch. Or try to punish them real quick with a short string. If you notice that your opponent likes to duck a lot, you go for Deadly Arc instead, right? So if they ducked the high, they're still gonna eat the mid, which leaves you at +6, meaning you can continue with your pressure. And if it connects a counter hit, you get a small combo, so that's great as well. You can also, should you decide to do so, go for Hitman stance immediately right after. So after you input the string, you just press 3+4. You could just do 4 as well, but Lee has different strings or moves where he can transition into Hitman stance, and the transition itself can vary between just 3, just 4, or 3+4. So I would suggest to always use 3+4, so you've got all options covered basically. So even when you're -4, you have a power crush to save you, or if you're really cheeky, could go for Hitman 2 to evade a high and basically blow them up for throwing out a high. Yeah. Yeah, aggressive 1-2 is Lee's main 13 frame punisher. So if you blocked Hitman 2, for example, that would be your main punish. Or if you block a knee, right? Or any hop kick. Because those are also nearly always -13. You can use it for wall carry as well. A fun fact about that move, it's a 13 frame punisher, but it's -13 as well. So only use it when you know that you're going to get a guaranteed hit in. Feather landing. So this one's a bit tricky. As you can see, it gives us some plus frames. And from there we can go for full crouch mix up with a slide, full crouch forward 4, right, while standing moves, stuff like that, or the really annoying infinite strings. Yeah, was there something else about this? It's very linear, so I wouldn't just throw it out in neutral. Only use it when you're very close range. You can use it to floor break, and you can use it after his forward 3+4 grab to get some guaranteed damage in. Otherwise there isn't much use to it. Yeah, missed step, we already talked about the different options, so we're gonna skip those. Mercury drive. So if you only do the first two, you're still safe, and you could set up a parry after the second has been blocked. If you go for all three, you're minus 14, and some characters can launch punish that. Alisa and Lars, for example. Yeah. If this connects on counter hit, the second hit, right? You get a launch. Another thing I forgot to mention. For the feather landing, if your opponent is facing away from you, you can use it as a guaranteed setup for any while standing move if your opponent tries to get up immediately, or mix between while standing and full crouch moves. So that's something else you can do, right? Front kick. So front kick is quite the useful poke you have with Lee, because it's a 13 frame mid check like his down forward 1, though his down forward 1 is made that way to stay close to the opponent, harass them, step to the side and harass them some more, right? While the front kick is there to gain some distance, so we can play some neutral and utilize some keyboard moves, right? As you can see, we push each other away, so I could go for movement right after, and then try to sneak in some countered launcher, so to speak. Or I can switch to Hitman stance, wait for my opponent to whiff, and then punish them heavily with Hitman 2. Or if I want to stay safe, get back in with either Hitman 1+2 or Hitman up forward 4. The downside to this, if this gets blocked and you go into Hitman, and your opponent knows that you're going into Hitman, they can get in a launch or a rage drive in for free. So, in example, I was fighting Brian the other day, right? Was poking a bit, was harassing him a bit, and then wanted to switch to the ranged game. Did that, what does the Brian player do? Uses his rage drive, right? His rage drive, if you remember, has the same animation as his back 1, where he takes a step forward to then hit you with the elbow, basically. And that step forward screwed me up because there was no longer any distance in between us. I couldn't block because I was 2-, so I couldn't cancel out of Hitman either. And I ate a pretty damaging combo that cost me the full round because I was being a dump ass at that point, right? So, as usual, you need to take a good look at your opponent and see what kind of player they are. And if they can, how knowledgeable they are concerning me. So, this one we talked about as well. On its own, I would never use it, to be honest. Yeah, there's just no point to this. 2-2-3 is better as a countered string, and that's just too slow. And even if you try to hit confirm, it's tricky. Hit confirming 4-1 way easier, and 4-1 is way faster as well. Down 2. So down 2 has an instant where you count as while crouching as well. So you can use that to evade or completely crush eyes, right? On counter hit, it becomes a countered launch as well. The pickup is very tricky, however. I haven't even managed to get it once, but it's an incredibly powerful tool, relatively fast while being evasive, being safe on block, having quite good tracking, and giving insane plus frames on hit. So it's a great move. It has Its uses, very, very strong, but difficult to follow up should you land a counter hit. Down 3. So down 3 is great. You can either just stay in crouch, if you think your opponent is more defensive, and then go for wild standing or full crouch moves, or you can go into Hitman, and if they try to retaliate with a high, it's Hitman 2 or Hitman 4, right? Because with both you completely crush highs. Or if you expect a mid or anything of the sort, it's time for the power crush. What you can also do, as I've just did there, I cancelled, right? Went for full crouch forward 4, and then got back into Hitman stance again, right? It's a great way to chip away at your opponent's health while kinda harassing them a bit, you know? And if they get impatient and try something, boom, power crush. So, shin to head kick. On its own, it's okay, right? On counter, it becomes a natural string, you get +2. Its main use is basically the high on counter hit becomes a launch, and you get a combo from there. Yeah, otherwise there's no real use for the high on its own. While we're at that topic, there is a secret Unblockable Lee has. So as soon as my down 4 connects, I slide over the buttons from 4 to 3. So 4, 3. I quickly press. And if I do it at that exact time I connected the low, I get a faster version of Lee's Unblockable. You can also cancel out of that Unblockable back into Hitman to confuse your opponent, make them panic, and then immediately go for Hitman 2 or Hitman 4 to get some good damage in. Yeah. This is basically the same as 4-3-3, the follow-up, so the same rules apply. It's just for people who duck a lot or try to interrupt you right after. So if the mid connects, the follow-up mid is guaranteed, if it's uncountered. Yeah. Then we've got a safer version, where we've got the flip involved, right? But this flip is -9, so no counter hit traps we can use, no movement, no parry. We can just go back into the defense and that's it. We've got no other option there. Also, because it ends with a flip, our opponent can jab us out of the air. So it's a bit risky to use. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. So, if our opponent does that, right, you can just jab them out for a float combo, if you got the timing down. Hello. I'm doing a guide on Lee right now, cause I've been asked to do so. I've done some other guides as well, and multiple people have asked me about Lee, so I figured I would do one for Lee now. Alright, then we've got Laser Edge Machine Gun Kick. It's basically the same as the neutral 4-4-4. So if you remember, if we do all 3 and they get blocked, it's kinda risky, though kinda still okay. It's just to push our opponent back, right? To play the range game and lure our opponent into counter hits, or to immediately go for a high crush move, like forward, forward 4, down 3, stuff like that, right? The low at the beginning is basically just to annoy our opponent. This is basically the better version of the flip. We are -1 now, so we're allowed to move to the side, to fish for launch, annoy our opponent with pokes, or go for the cheeky 2-2-3 counter setup, right? It shares, however, the same weakness as the other flip, meaning we can get jabbed out of there. Let's see. So if you overdo it, you're gonna pay for it, basically. If you want to play a bit more risky, you can, however, go for missed step right after. If you remember, when doing missed step, we completely evade all kind of highs. And then we go for another evasive move, which either gives us a launch, counter hit launch, or we could even try to sidestep. Though I suggest going for a small poke instead, cause that's safer, you know? So this string is very unsafe. At the end of it, you can go into Hitman stance, right? Should you connect this on counter hit, I think it was the second or third one that needs to connect on counter hit, nearly the full string becomes guaranteed. Yeah, I think it was the third one that needs to connect, and then the fourth becomes guaranteed. Good at the wall, great to annoy people, but very unsafe if you don't use Hitman stance right after. It leaves us at -20, so we can get launched for it. And if we go for the Hitman stance itself at the end of that string, we are in a weird place. We're kind of safe, but we're kind of not. Like frame-wise, we are at a disadvantage, and depending on the character we're facing off against, we're either in trouble or are safe. It's a tricky spot to be in. But I still wanted to mention that option regardless, just so you can keep it in mind, right? So, Silver Cyclone is at least unblockable. It's a high, so it can be ducked and while standing launched. You can cancel into Hitman stance with another press of 3+4, right? So if you're at the wall, it's great for psyching people out and then going for evasive maneuvers. Yeah, that's a small poke he has. It's less unseeable than his down back 3+4. It's faster, but because it's faster, you get less frame advantage. Yeah, Death Touch is another unblockable he has. It's 2 hit, as you can see. You can cancel out of it as well, but I would just not use that unblockable, you know? Just use the down 3+4 instead, it's better. Yeah, Grass Snake, that's the other low poke. I've kinda hinted at already. It's slower, but gives greater frame advantage. So it's great to apply some pressure right after. Triple Fang. So, Triple Fang is special. It's one of those just frames Lee has, right? So, if I just input it normally, it's a string that gives me +1, right? And on block it's unsafe even, I think, at -11, but pushback makes it kinda safe. If we were at the wall, however, we would eat a punish. Just frame. Let's see if I can get it to work. results in a knockdown. And if your opponent doesn't hold back immediately, you're gonna get back up 3 follow-up or blazing kick follow-up, guaranteed. So, to make it a bit easier on how to land that thing, instead of inputting back 1, 1, 2, you input back 1, back and 1 at the same time twice, and then 2. Timing-wise, that helped me a ton. Maybe it might help you out as well. You can go into Hitman stance from there as well, right? Or you can cancel the second hit by pressing forward or tapping forward before the second hit can connect to go for a missed step. To either go for different missed step shenanigans, to gain some distance, right? Go for launchers, or try to be as evasive as possible. On normal hit, the natural string... Alright, let me phrase it differently. The string is natural on hit, so if you manage to hit your opponent with the first hit, the other hits are all guaranteed as well. So, on open ground, it's a knockdown, but at the wall it's a wall split. So either way you can get in some guaranteed damage. Yeah, with misstep we talked about this. So rear cross punch. This you mainly use for combos. Yeah, so remember on misstep where you do the sway back? You can do that here as well. And there is like a bit of tech concerningly, where when you press back, right, to do that sway back move, and immediately follow up with another move, it's gonna count as if you were in crouch and utilize the while standing move, right? And that's how I can utilize those while standing moves. I usually would only able to use if I was crouching, right? Mainly you're gonna see that in combos, right? To either extend them or get a screw, right? And combo-wise, right? You can basically chain that together to carry your opponent forward towards the wall. Before Lars got his huge buffs in Season 4 and so on, Lee was pretty much the king of wall carry. Yeah. While I basically have talked about most of that already, one hint I can give on when to do the other inputs to get those chained together back twos working. As soon as he's done dashing in, that's when you do the next input. You don't do it while he's mid-animation, but only once the animation is close to being over, basically, right? Yeah, and if you want to pressure your opponent or try to go for those kind of shenanigans, right? And your opponent is like, I can just use a mid poke to interrupt him from closing in on me, right? After I've blocked the high. That's when you use that string. On counter hit, second connects, it's a countered launch, right? Otherwise there's no real use for it. I wouldn't dare use it in neutral as well, because every single hit is a high. So it can be ducked and while standing launched at any point. So very risky to use. Should this connect on block, however, feel free to move around, either backwards or to the side. Yeah, Stinging Rush, never use that in neutral, only use that for combos and pickups. Otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. On counter hit it becomes a natural and even gives you a small frame advantage, but it doesn't do much. Yeah. After certain moves you use it as a pickup tool. So basically after those hard knockdowns like here, right? Or forward 4, or counter hit 1+2, right? That's when you utilize that string. Otherwise, you don't use it at all. Yeah, as I've shown, you can go into misstep right after. That's of course required for the more complex combos. Back 4. So, back 4 is one of these key moves, so to speak. It's safe, no. You can go into Hitman stance and still move to the side, cause you're only -2. And even if you don't go into Hitman stance, you can still move to the side, cause you're at -3. Great move, right? It gives you some plus frames on hit, so you can kind of work with that. Normal pokes won't always connect, however. So make sure you use something with a bit more range, right? Like down forward 4, forward 2-1, or back 1-1-2, stuff like that. On counter hit, it becomes a launcher. Yeah. It's great for keeping your opponent out of your own private space, so to speak. So if I were to backdash, right, and then immediately tried going for that, sometimes I would get a back 4 instead, which we don't want to get. So instead of just backdashing and then back 4, we do a small sidestep to the side. Let's see. And then go for back 4. So we don't get any misinputs there and get back 4 instead. Back 4, on close range you get a combo as well. At long range you would only get Hitman up forward 4, right? And I've set my opponent still to utilize get up kick, right? So the grounded hit is basically always guaranteed, and if they try to retaliate in any kind of form, you're gonna get a countered combo for free. Yeah, this is his Power Crush. Incredibly powerful at the wall, cause it's a Power Crush and a wall bounce. However, it's launch punishable, so use with care. Yeah. Up back 3, basically whenever our opponent is grounded, we utilize that to get some extra damage in, or use it against characters with a very low hitbox, like when Lay's chilling on the ground, or Eddie is waiting for us in his relaxed stance. That's when we use that move, or blazing kicks. Then we've got Fake. You can kind of utilize that as taunt, so to speak, if you wish to do so. Or you could even utilize that to get some pressure in, which is very weird, because it would look something, let me see, like this. As you can see, I wasn't able to immediately follow up with a while-standing move, cause there's like a slight delay. So in a real fight, in higher ranks, I wouldn't use it at all, right? But if I was fighting someone who's very defensive, who waits a lot, or someone in lower ranks, then I would use it from time to time to just throw them off their game, so to speak. Yeah, then we've got those two options. So the high option on block is of course safe. We can step right after, and the downside to it is basically that because the second is a high, it can be ducked and while standing launched. If the first connects, the second is guaranteed, and if this hits, we can do a micro dash and get a guaranteed combo. If we notice, however, that our opponent is avoiding the high a bit too often, right, we go for the mid version instead. It's unsafe on block, however, as you can see, so we're gonna eat a small punish. On hit we get some frame advantage, and we recover always in crouch, right? I don't even need to hold down. If I try to press something immediately, I'm only going to get the while standing moves. And if the second connects on counter hit, we get a combo as well. Yeah, Silver Arrow is our main 15 frame launch, together with Fort 3-3-3-3-3-4. Like most hop kicks, it's minus 13, so you're gonna eat a small punish for that. It has some deceptive range, so from range 2 to range 1 you can use it. Range 1 would be safest, of course. Range 2 is okay as well. Range 3 is... would not recommend. Most of the time you're gonna whiff like an idiot and get killed for it. Silver Bullet. So on block it's plus. Usually with moves where you can cancel into your character specific stance right after, you would gain some additional plus frames, right? So normal is plus 5, if we go into Hitman we're plus 8. So the same rule applies here as well. Yeah, on hit it's a hard knockdown. You get a guaranteed forward 3+4, blazing kick or up X3. Yeah. Very linear, however. So if your opponent loves to step a lot, use with care. Yeah, so this you could use as a minus 14 punisher. A safe minus 14 punisher. If you remember, the other 14 frame punish we had was 4-1, where the high could be ducked and punished. This is a mid that pushes back and is minus 11, so it makes it very difficult for our opponent to get a punish against us. At the wall, cause there's no more place to push our opponent further away from us, however, we're probably gonna eat that small punish. But besides that, it's a great move, and it's also the common follow-up after a missed trap to get some guaranteed damage in if they try to get up immediately. Fort 4, we've already spoken about a bit. It's a high crush, it's a combo starter, it's good stuff. Yeah, Blazing Kick. So Blazing Kick is that huge launcher we have, right? If you're really good, you could do a mistrap right after for style points. I can't do it no more, cause I've been playing a lot of different characters recently, so my Lee's a bit rusty, but it works and looks sick as hell. You can throw it out in neutral from time to time. If you think your opponent is gonna rush in to catch them. It's got quite the unique animation, so it will be difficult for your opponent to react. The downside with it, however, is it's launch punishable. So I don't mind taking the risk to just throw it out in neutral, but it leaves a big target on your back should you whiff or should it get blocked and your opponent is paying attention. Ah, right, and it's one of those moves you use against grounded opponents, right? So, stuff like that, right? Or after Acid Rain. Yeah, back 4-4 is the other homing move we have. If you remember, 1+2 was an option we had. Back 4 is the other one we have. This we use against stepping opponents, and also we use it against, we also use it to control space a bit between us. So if we notice our opponent is dodging our back 4 a lot, we utilize back 4 instead. Yeah, and it's a homing move as well for some reason, don't ask me why. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. Yeah. This is just for style and to bait or taunt people, right? This is one of Lee's strongest and also weakest moves. It's a while running move, so if you try to run towards your opponent and your opponent is familiar with Lee, they're just gonna sidewalk and launch you for it. Cause Lee's kinda notorious for that move already in lower ranks and mid ranks. If you manage to do it from a short distance with an instant while running input, however, this move is gonna be one of your BFFs for life. Right? You can cancel back into Hitman stance immediately, right? If you don't, you get less frame advantage. It's still enough to work with, but going into Hitman puts more pressure onto them, because now that you're in Hitman, it's a mid-low mix-up, right? Yeah. Wonderful combo, what a name. Alright, so this is your wild standing 13 frame punish. You can go into Hitman stance right after, right? Gives you +4, and as you can see, it leaves you at range 2, basically. So you could either go in, or keep your distance and try to bait them into counters. Going into Hitman stance is something you can do, but I wouldn't recommend. Most of the time you're just gonna get blown up for it. Yeah. Also, because it's a wild standing move, if you remember the missed step cancel, you can use that there as well, so it's an additional pressure option you have. Yeah, Rocket here, that's basically your main 14 frame while standing punish. Usually you just get the forward 3 as a follow-up. If you got some rage, however, you get a pretty high damaging combo with insane amount of wall carry. It's huge amounts of damage, incredibly strong. The downside to that move, however, is that it's unsafe at -13. That's why we've got a mid-high option as well, which is safe, but the high can be ducked, and if something gets ducked, most of the time you can get launched for it as well. If it connects, however, right, doesn't matter for which string of those two. If the first hit connects, the second is always guaranteed. So those two are natural strings. The wild standing 2-4 is also your main combo screw. And one thing to mention there. As you can see, our opponent is doing that little spin when we hit him properly, showing us that we've got a lot of plus frames to work with. You don't really get anything guaranteed, but from experience I can say that some people have trouble blocking the forward 3-3-3-3-3-4 right after. So if you hit someone with that and then immediately go for that, most of the time you will hit people. And if you don't, just don't finish the string, you know. If you don't want to take that risk and apply even more pressure, you use down back 3+4. I forgot to mention that on counter hit, it's a hard knockdown, and you get all those grounded hits we've talked about earlier for free, guaranteed for free. Yeah. Then we've got the infinite kick chain. The downside with that move is it's very linear, as you can see. So if you overdo it, you are gonna face towards your opponent with your back, right? I think it's actually, yeah, it's a 10 frame punish actually. So if you were to block a dick jab by accident, you actually would be able to punish with the first two hits. All the other hits right after that are not guaranteed. They can be blocked or low parried, so be careful there. We've got a different version as well, where instead of going mid-low, we are going mid-high, I believe. Yeah, mid-high, right? But here we have the same problem. If we overdo it, we're gonna face the other way. Yeah, and while doing either of those versions, you can constantly switch between the two. So it's either low mid or mid high, right? Depending on if you hold down or hold down forward. If you hold down forward, you get the mid high option. If you hold down the whole time, you get the low mid option. Oh, I completely forgot about the high option apparently. Let's see. Right, that's a different high mid option. Yeah, which kind of results in a knockdown. Yeah, I won't be able to properly show, but that hook kick that comes from above, similar to that, it would result in a knockdown as well, into a guaranteed follow-up. So, full crouch forward 4. We can use that to annoy our opponent a bit. Uncounted, it's a knockdown, which gives us our usual suspects as a follow-up, right? Sometimes when the wall's very close and you cancel into Hitman stance, you get a pickup as well. It's very range and stage specific, however. Yeah, you're -3. Usually I would recommend stepping to the side or moving at -3 or better. But in this situation, because you're staying in crouch, it would take additional time to get out of crouch and then to move around. So I don't recommend it here. What you can do, however, is immediately cancel. So you sidestep to the upper side, right? To cancel as fast as you can out of crouch, and then can catch people with a parry. That's quite risky, however. That's just my personal preference to fuck with people like that. I wouldn't recommend doing that. It's just an option. The other thing you could do, which is a bit better, is to cancel into Hitman stance instead. And from there, you kind of try to see what they're going for, if they try to retaliate, if they try to interrupt, if they are waiting, right? And then you go from there. Another thing I forgot to mention, damn it, I'm forgetting a lot of things. When you're in Hitman stance and you tap forward, you go immediately for the missed step. So I could do stuff like that. So right now I've combined different knowledge things about Lee, right? I've switched to Hitman stance from the low, cancelled into missed step, used back 2 to go for another missed step, and cancelled out of that to use a while standing move. That's stuff you can do. Yeah, catapult low kick, very slow launch. Combo-wise, you can do some fun shit with that, but you barely get to use it, only on hard reads if you blocked a snake edge, for example. Some hell sweeps you can punish with that, but most are only -15, -16, so that move is too slow. Then you've got that version as well, which is super launch punishable. It's just to fuck with your opponent. Doesn't really have any uses. This one is interesting because you can kind of use it as a cross up, right? I don't know if I can show it properly here. Ah, yeah. So I've set my opponent now to block everything while he's standing. So every attack, high, mid, doesn't matter, he's gonna block. This, however, hits him because I hit him from the back, right? You can use that to cheese the last bit of health your opponent still has left. Still has left to get a cheesy win with it. It's also possible to avoid Kazumi's Tiger with that, if timed properly, to get some damage in for free without having to sidewalk, sidestep, and then go for the punish. If you're feeling cheeky, that is. Sliding. Alright. So when we're in crouch, we hold down, we tap forward once, and then tap forward a second time. And while we tap the second time forward, we hold down the button. So we hold down forward at the end. The faster you get at that, the better. The difference between that slide and the full crouch slide, if you do the missed step slide, you don't get anything guaranteed. Like your opponent will always be able to block the full up kick. After the full crouch slide, however, the low kick is always guaranteed. Completely forgot about that. Yeah, that's a sidestep option he has. One is... So with both you can screw your opponent. It allows for some weird setups, but I haven't experimented too much with that. Yeah, and the sidestep right into that you can get the occasional pickup for a combo. Yeah. It has some good tracking as well, I think. Yeah, 10 hits with throws. Just checking real quick. Yeah, after the normal 1+3 throw, you could go for a launch. If your opponent tries to use a get up kick, or just get up as fast as he can, the launch is guaranteed, so it's an Oki trap. Let's see. You could even use the Asset Rainstorm, or what it was called, to get the launch, but your timing has to be precise. Yeah, knee drive is the only command throw he got. You get a guaranteed blazing kick if you got the timing down. So if they try to interrupt, they're gonna get launched. If they stay on the ground, they're gonna eat the hit grounded. And if they try to interrupt and the timing is weird, you're gonna see that weird flip. Like that, right? I still don't quite know the timing for that. It's weird. The most reliable thing to do after the command grab, however, is to use forward 3+4. Yeah. Missed illusion, that's Lee's punch parry. Yeah, let's see. If you follow after parrying with back 1+2, you press 4 to get the immediate follow-up kick. And if they try to press immediately right after having switched sides and the kick connects, then you even get a combo. To demonstrate real quick. So, yeah. Yeah, then we've got the Rage Art. Rage Art is Rage Art. Nothing much to it. Rage Drive. Yeah, the best combo really is from while standing 2-3 for max amounts of damage, as far as I know. Yeah. You can just throw it out and it's still a good chunk of damage. It's safe on block, but if it gets blocked, don't misstep in immediately, cause people can launch you out of that. Alright, so yeah, I think that's all the general knowledge and everything. Now I'm gonna move to some wall stuff. Just gonna explain some wall combos and setups, and then we're done, I think. Alright, let's see. We're gonna move a bit closer to the wall. So remember the triple thing, which resulted in a hard knockdown. At the wall, it's a wall split, as you can see. So, what options do we have after a wall split? If we're going pure damage, we're gonna go down 4, 4, up 3. So that string, right? Pretty reliable. There's another option to go for 3-3-3 right after, but not every hit will connect if you've done longer combo that carried your opponent towards the wall and you wanted to use that as a wall ender. Most reliable option, however, would be down forward 1 and then forward 4-3. Ah, crap. And then down 3 at the end into Hitman stance, right? And if our opponent tries to interrupt us, we're gonna be faster with Hitman stance 1-2. Or if we're feeling a bit riskier, we could go for the wall bounce. If we think that they're not going for the get-up kick and fear the low and they're ducking, we're basically going for the stance-based bounce. Stance-based bounce? Yes. Yeah, another option we have is, instead of going with down 3 into Hitman stance, we can go for up back 3. This can be blocked, however, if your opponent doesn't get up by holding back, but getting up by pressing up and back simultaneously. They will be able to block that move. And if they block that, you are going to eat a 13 frame punish, worst case scenario, right? Yeah, and in another situation at war, remember the faster unblockable we've talked about? If you cancel out of that, let's see, damn, should have, right? If I get hit, it's a wall split as well. And if you notice, alright, they're always gonna react and try to interrupt me and stuff, that's when you cancel into Hitman and either go for Power Crush or Hitman 2 to get a high wall split. Otherwise, I think we've pretty much covered everything. At least I don't think I've missed anything. One thing perhaps. So Lee's misstep is quite linear, right? So people can step to the side or sidewalk to the side. If you notice that your opponent constantly tries to sidestep or sidewalk you when you're going for the missed steps, you can cancel the missed step by sidestepping to either side and then go for 1+2, which is a homing move to catch them stepping, to basically prevent them from doing that and trying to avoid you all the time. Yeah, for wall carry, maybe I can show some examples. So, usually you would do something like this, right? And then you can do that as finish. Or, if you want to do it with more style, you can go for the back 2 cancel like that. It's a bit trickier though, and the timing is a bit stricter. So I would recommend getting used to it first in practice. If you manage to land those back 2 loops quite consistently with the cancel, then you have nothing to fear, then you should be able to do that no problem whatsoever. Let's see, something else? Ah, right, that's something I could mention. I haven't mentioned that, I think. So depending on which side you step towards to and then press 3+4, you get different frames, because those two, though they look very similar, are completely different moves, though they share some properties. So if you step to the left, and then press 3+4, you are at -2. As you can see, it pushes you quite back a bit from your opponent. So you could go for backdashing to go for countered fishing with back 4, or you could go for sidestep movement and then annoy with pokes, or go for bigger launch. If you step to the right, however, and try to do either of those things, you're gonna eat some hits, because it's -9 and not -2, so keep that in mind. to maybe explain a bit further why they did it that way and where is that difference. That I can't speak anymore. That difference in frames to the one to the left, as you can see, just knocks down, right? Like hits the opponent further away from us and we don't get any follow-up. So that's why only -2, that we can work a bit more with movement should it get blocked. The other, however, knocks our opponent down to the ground. And we can get a free pickup from certain ranges and can convert it to a combo. That's why there's that frame difference, because there are different rewards awaiting us, basically. Yeah, other than that, I believe I pretty much covered everything. Maybe to repeat one more time. So the different just frames we have would be 1-3-3-3, triple thing, which is back 1-1-2, mistrap, if I can end it. So 3-3-4, right? There we go. Down 4-4-3. The 4-3 part, you basically slide over the buttons to get the fast unblockable. Yeah, and I think that covers all the just frames he has. We covered the different pickups as well. Yeah, I think I pretty much showed everything I know about Lee. And it didn't even take us 2 hours, just 1 hour and 42, 43 minutes or so. So that's quite nice. Alright, that's it for this tutorial guide. I hope you learned something here. And should you have any more questions, just write me a little message and I'm gonna take a look and we can speak a bit about playing Lee. Alright, that's it from me. I'm gonna see you next stream. Till then.